Hello everyone. Thank you so much for your participation in the Ontario Provincial Music Festival. And thank you to your local music festivals that have recommended you. These festivals are sponsored usually by community service groups like the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the Kinsmen, the Lions, the Optimists, or maybe other individuals or organizations who are committed to fostering and showcasing the musical talents of the people in your communities. And we are so fortunate in Ontario that this tradition has been around for about 100 years with some of these local festivals. And we're so grateful to the volunteers who contribute their time and their energy to making those festivals happen. And to those who donate scholarships and who help people like yourselves to continue to the next level of competition. You know, many professional musicians got their start in local festivals like this. So who knows? But one day you might decide to make a career in music, or at least, I hope, to continue to share your talents in these festivals and competitions for quite a few years. So the class I'm going to speak about is the beginner level, ages 6 to 8. This class was divided into 2 groups as there were nearly 30 competitors in this category. And I have to say, I was absolutely delighted and somewhat humbled at the level of musicianship and creativity and presentation of those songs. Repertoire choices for young people are very important. You were encouraged to prepare 2 age-appropriate contrasting songs. Again, we're fortunate in this country to have easy access to the many editions of the songbooks published by the Royal Conservatory and by Conservatory Canada. And these songs are specifically selected and graded according to their range, their voice independence, and their storytelling appeal to young people. I'd like to talk a little bit about the different styles of songs, which I've categorized roughly as follows. The first one, up-tempo folk songs, and many of you chose one in this style. They have a strong rhythmic energy, and they usually tell fun or fantastic stories. So songs like Cara Mama, Mary's Wedding, The Winsome Rover, Vive la Canadienne, and the Skyboat Song. The music is usually strophic, that is, there are several verses and then a refrain. And you might have a physical connection to the strong rhythm or the energy of the song. And you might show that in your body. For example, if you were singing, "Step we gaily on we go, heel for heel and toe for toe" in Mary's Wedding, or "Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing, on with the sailor's cry." You can feel that rhythmic energy that characterizes the folk song. And sometimes these songs have very clear characters that may change throughout the song, like the girl or the lady in Winsome Rover, or in Cara Mama, the girl who is totally unhappy until finally her mother realizes what she really wants to do is meet the gardener. So the second style is also in folk songs, but these would be ballad folk songs, the slower, more sustained, where the message is more thoughtful and where the language may be more poetic, like in Come by the Hills or Un Canadien Errant, Simple Gifts to the Sky, The Ash Grove, or Santa Lucia. So here, the singer needs to use eye focus and word painting to show that they're really thinking about the images and the emotions that are in the song. For example, Come by the Hills, which quite a few of you sang, the message here is how if we only pay attention to the beauty of nature, specifically the hills and the rivers, the birds, even the wind, that we can forget our worries and just enjoy life. It is a gentle, reassuring, and comforting message. Similarly, the ash grove. The words describe a place of great beauty, which makes the speaker feel welcome and at home. So it's not one that we move our bodies to very much, but the expression must come through our eyes and our face to show how meaningful the words are. So then we go back to art songs, which are up-tempo. So these are songs that can be quite dramatic and character-filled, and they're often quite funny, like I Need a Home for My Dinosaur, or The Farm, or La Fourmi, Someday, The Spider Hunter, Father's Whiskers. They all have, well, some of them have what I call character attitude, and they do require acting and gestures. And for this age group, the characters are sometimes a little bit cheeky and always very confident. They often also have unsung sounds, like reactions to the end of The Spider Hunter, where the spider falls on the person, or the last word of I Need a Home for My Dinosaur. It's going cheap. The fourth style is, again, art songs, but these are written in, again, a more lyrical way to create a mood or reflect upon a scene that inspires us to maybe wonder or think about or imagine different things. So a good example of this one is Silver Moon, again, one that many of you have learned and sung, where you're looking at the moon and being amazed at how magical it is and all the wonderful different historical things that you remember in that song. Sometimes these songs create or have a comforting message too, similar to the ballad folk songs, such as the magical beauty of Sing a Rainbow or The Robin's Tale. Or sometimes the song is about the power of a place to pull you back to it, as in Homeward Bound. So again, in these songs, eye focus, which reflects the imagery, is very important. And it's also a way to connect you directly to the audience and tell them this message with sincerity. And finally, there were some sacred songs, and there are lots of wonderful examples for young voices in that category. All Things Bright and Beautiful, This Little Light of Mine, I Know My Father Loves Me. And these songs express reassurance and reverence for a world that isn't perhaps tangible, but that is understood on a spiritual level. So, there were many different kinds of songs in this class, and they present different challenges. So, I'd like to talk about three things that apply to all of them: vocal production, musicianship, and presentation. So let's start with vocal production. As you know, the first thing we have to figure out as singers is how to use the breath to support the voice. And I know you probably all have your favorite warm-ups for breathing. You may do lip trills, you may do those just freely, or you may do them on pitches. The importance of the lip trill is to make sure that the breath is under the sound, because otherwise your lips will not trill. Maybe you do a bit of humming with just glides, or again, specifically on pitches. And again, that's a good exercise that brings the focus of the sound into the front of the mask. You might just do a specific breathing thing where you're blowing out the candle And maybe after you've done that a bit, the next time you do it, you add a sound. So that the sound is definitely coming on the breath. Okay, 2 things to remember about breathing in singing. Keep the shoulders down and make sure the breath is quiet when you take it. So one of my favorite exercises to practice getting a little more control over the breath and to find this low singer's breath in the body is to pretend that you're going to exhale all the, well, not pretend, you are going to exhale all the air out of your body and bringing your arms together, and then drop the air in by opening your throat and opening your arms. Quiet inhalation, dropping the air into the lower part of the lungs. You can practice that. Then once you've got that under control, you can use a movement of the arms to practice how long it takes to sing a note or a phrase. So if you were just doing vowels, for example, you've exhaled your air, you drop it in. Oh, come by the hills to the land where fancy is free. So you can kind of use physical things like that to help you work on your breath control. The next important aspect of vocal production is creating space in the mouth and the back of the throat to allow the sound to come out. And there are lots of different ideas that we have used over the years to see if we can find that space. And I'm sure your teachers have suggested some to you. I always encourage my students to look in the mirror at the back of their throat as if they were saying "ah" at the dentist or the doctor, and see if they can find and see the uvula, which is attached to the soft palate at the back of their throat. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes their tongue gets in the way, but it's important to know where that space is and to see if you can enlarge it by pretending to stifle a yawn, or smelling the roses, or maybe you talk a little bit funny sometimes as if you're an aristocrat in an English country house somewhere. So don't be afraid to make silly noises when you're learning to sing. So creating that space in the mouth and the throat also assists when we come to creating the shape of the vowels for classical singing. So remember that the vowels are formed mostly on the inside of the mouth. So next we come to pitch, or we call it intonation. As young singers, it's often challenging to sing your melody line if the accompaniment doesn't completely follow the voice or double the voice. Sometimes a lack of breath causes the pitch to go under, a little bit flat, or sometimes, and this is an important one for this class because I did see it a few times, your chin starts to creep up like that when you're singing, thereby kinking the tube at the back in your neck there and causing a bit of strain. So if I hear the difference that happens when I lift my chin up. So watch out for that. Keep your chin parallel to the floor. And the other thing to watch out for is be careful not to scoop into notes unless it's a feature of the style of the song that you're singing. And just be cautious even then how much you use it. So with young voices, tone is often a little bit breathy and sometimes quite forward because that's where your speaking voices are at this age. And I'm sure your teachers are encouraging you to explore and develop a clear, focused tone and developing what we often refer to as the head voice and bringing out this quality in the tone, which is more customary for classical singing. Also be careful not to approach words that start with a vowel too aggressively with what we call a glottal onset. The word I or eat. If we approach those words too hard, we're snapping the vocal cords together, and if we do that too much, it can cause a little roughness on the sound. So in your reports, you will have comments about vocal production that include breath management, legato phrasing, vowel shaping, space in the back of the throat, and about the tone being focused. So the next area I wanted to speak about was musicianship, and this refers to, of course, what's in the score, correct notes and rhythms, and making decisions about dynamics or tempo changes. The words need to be clear, and this means that you have to articulate the consonants as well as making well-shaped vowels, making sure they're strong. And as many of you did, sing in different languages, very well most of the time, making sure to authenticate the differences in pronunciation that we have from English in those different languages. It's occasionally you may decide that the dynamics that are in a piece of music don't suit you, and that's okay. If you score it out or say, oh, I'm going to do a different dynamic here, but bear in mind that the composer or perhaps an editor has given quite a lot of thought to how they think their composition, their piece of music should sound. So I would encourage you, if there are dynamic markings, to try them out and see if you can make them work. Next, we come to presentation. How do you interpret and perform a song? As I mentioned earlier, some songs invite acting and gestures and lots of facial expression depending on their style. So using a gesture as a young age can be quite literal. Listen with your eyes, or gesturing to a nose as if there's some reference to that. If it helps to tell the story. It is a way of incorporating some physical freedom into the song. As you gain experience using the gestures, however, you'll find that they can become more natural and subtle, and that they're motivated by emotions or perhaps the imagery, and that you make them integrated into the song. Feeling the rhythm of the song, as I mentioned earlier, and being physically free is usually instinctive for young children, and most of you let the music move you, and that's just great. You can also take a step or two within your camera range if it makes sense. For example, in a song like Skyboat Song, you might want to take a step forward when you start. Step we gaily on we go, and then take a step back as you go into describing the verses about loud the winds howl, loud the winds roar. So don't be afraid to take a little bit of movement. And an easy way to get into that is to make sure, and this comes a little later with posture, that your knees aren't locked. There's another example in Red River Valley. You might gesture for the girl or the boy, however you're singing it, to come and sit by my side if you love me. A little gesture to show that you're welcoming them. Facial expression can really help present the message and the mood and the story of the song. Keep in mind that if your song has a slower tempo and might seem a little bit sad, we try not to sing with too much of a sad expression on the face, because that kind of gets the audience thinking, oh dear, what's wrong with this poor person? Sad songs are usually thoughtful or nostalgic or are full of longing. I like to think of them as I wish songs. So then, I spoke about eye focus a little bit. It can be specific. If there's an image that you want to train your eyes to look at for part of the song, I wouldn't say for the whole song, but you establish that and you might come back to it, as in Silver Moon, when you're singing the refrain, coming back to it and focusing on that spot. Just be careful it doesn't lift your chin up too high. You might also be using eye focus to speak directly to your audience, as in, I need a home for my dinosaur, or 'tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free. So you're having a conversation with your audience and you're looking directly at them. Or lastly, your eye focus might be internal. You might be singing a song that is sort of thinking to yourself, like the true light is you. So then we come to posture, which I sort of touched on a minute ago. And this is so important. And most of you have very, very good posture. But it doesn't hurt to remind yourselves to keep your body aligned, not leaning forward with your shoulders rounded or your chin moving forward like that. And one thing that I like to see, and I think many people do, is to let your arms be relaxed at your sides rather than folded in front or folded back. There's a reason for the back. It tends to be a little restricting. So it's just, if you can work towards letting your arms and hands be just relaxed at your side, that's just great. And I mentioned not having any tension in your knees, letting your knees be relaxed, letting your feet be a bit apart, and maybe one is slightly in front of the other. It allows you balance to move in and out of that position. Another aspect of presentation, and this is a little bit personal, is figuring out what to wear, especially on your feet. Now, fortunately, at this young age, most people aren't concerned about wearing high heels or things that are going to throw you off balance. But I was delighted to see how all of you dressed up for this occasion. I think that's really important. This is a special event. It's like a celebration, and dressing up helps us to feel special. So thank you for doing that. And last but definitely not least, please remember to smile both at the beginning and at the end of your performance. You might also take a bow and acknowledge your accompanist, and try to hold your focus in the song or in the character until the very last note of the piano. Remember, people hear with their eyes. So if you look confident and poised, everyone will assume that you've done a fabulous job, which most of you did. So thank you very much for your effort, for also the assistance and direction of your teachers and your accompanists and your parents for supporting you. It was a real pleasure to hear your performances, and I hope you all will continue to participate in festivals for many more years.